Hi, I'm Jessica Morgenthau from Resilience Gone Wild, and I am so thrilled to be here for Florida Climate Week 2025. And I'm here to talk about a shift from me to win-win-win mindset for Florida communities and ecosystems. So let's get going. So let's start with me, because it's always good to start with a story. So when I grew up in New York City, and for many years after, it always seemed like a me. Everything was kind of about me. I really wasn't connected to nature. I really wasn't connected to systems. And you can see from some of the pictures, I grew up in concrete jungle. They had paved over and put brick over our grassy playgrounds and taken out the nature. I went apple picking once a year with my family, but the apples were just for me. I wasn't learning about farming or about apple growing or about regenerative agriculture. It was there for me to get apples. And then I used to go to the zoo all the time. I love the zoo. The Central Park Zoo in those days looked like this picture. The lion had a little tiny cage, and he was there with the tigers and the elephants and all the other beautiful species that needed huge amounts of space in their happy times. We're putting these little tiny cages so that it was about me. It was about my experience. It wasn't about them. So nature was there just for me. And over the years, I had a shift. I shifted to it, nature being kind of non-existent, even though I went to camp and had experience, the Central Park Zoo was across the street from me, or the Central Park. I lived across the street from Central Park, but it wasn't in connection. And I didn't really have a sense of awe. And then over the years, the awe started. I started becoming very, very obsessed with sunsets and sunrises and the magnificent colors and smells and beauty of flowers and sunsets and nature. But it was all about awe. And then we got Max. Max changed my mindset. It started me on a new path where I started to really connect with the sentience, at least of my dog. And Max wanted to be outside. We used to go hiking and be outside as much as we could. And he was always digging in the dirt and smelling the flowers and touching everything and interacting with every single species he came across, whether it be a field mouse or another dog or another human or an ant. It was all about being in connection. And then I finally moved to Singer Island. It was COVID, and we had this revelation, like, let's live at the beach, let's live in nature. So Singer Island is the most magnificent place. We have the densest turtle nesting almost in the world. We have the most amazing snorkeling. We have these gorgeous beaches, and it changed me. And I met my first sea turtle. So this is one of our many sea turtles that live nesting on our beach year after year. And you can see a picture of all of the many turtle tracks that we find every morning, real tracks and false crawls on our beach during turtle season, and the sunsets and the sunrises and the birds and the waves and the sound of the ocean. Everything is just heavenly because this is Florida, right? But I wanted to learn more. I was watching. I was having a sense of awe. I was trying to understand what was going on, but I needed to learn more from people who knew what was going on and to be really deeper involved. So I went and hung out at Loggerhead, took a nighttime turtle walk, saw a turtle actually nesting, saw the eggs and the incredible nest that this turtle had lovingly created. And I decided I wanted to volunteer. And it pretty much changed everything for me. So I made new friends, human, more than human, and was gaining these new stories that I was hearing from expert other people who work there, and from guests, and from all these different visitors about the resilience and the incredible capacity of every species that we were confronted with to have survived millions and millions and millions of years because of powerful resilience that they had built. And as a resilience expert, a positive psychologist, a trainer, and a coach, my brain goes to resilience. And all I could think of was, what can we learn from this incredible nature, nurture, and wisdom of these sentient animals? So my mind was shifting. I was really getting to really understand that each individual animal in a species, and that the species grew as a whole, that the community that they were living in was an incredible level of sentience. There was communication, there was feeling, there was caring, there was behavior to each other that was both kind and unkind. And it was just like humans. It was equal. It put me in a place where I understood that we were sharing systems, we were sharing our ecosystems, and that we were equal, not better. And I began to meet more and more people who really got it and were really doing this work, who were putting into action the work to change people's mindsets, to save our ecosystems, to protect our ecosystems, and who were just finding such joy and purpose in doing it all. So it occurred one day, I just decided to start Resilience Gone Wild. It was born from a desire to shift the mindset from me, to win, 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 where everyone wins. I win, we in relationship win, and our wild world wins. No one needs to lose when there's a win, win, win. It's a shift from fear of nature and fear of each other to awe and curiosity and non judgment. It's about shifting from extraction and taking more than we need to belonging and sharing and just taking what we do need or asking for what we do need, to fragility and a lack of resilience, to strength and resilience so that we can handle bumps in the road, like climate impact. And it's from survival to thriving. That was the shift. Let's thrive, let's flourish, let's not just survive. So, what I understood and wanted to share was that stories were the way to get to people's mindsets, to change them so that they would change their behavior. Stories light up our brains. Stories involve empathy and emotion and make connections so that we look at things we've heard from before, that we've experienced before. And it is the only way we can actually take action, through having processed a story and found meaning in it. That's how we decide to move forward and take action. So, Resilience Gone Wild was all about stories. And it's all about science. We need to believe in science. We need to trust science. Science is about not about proof. Science is about learning and growing and building on each thing that we learn and each thing that we can repeat. So we need to learn about the science of each species that we're challenging and that we should be trying to save. We need to learn about the science of climate, the science of resilience, the science of our coastal systems, the science of our coastal systems. So I built science into the stories. And metaphor, nature metaphor specifically, are so vital. We think in metaphor. Metaphors make it easier to manage tough stuff. If we confront the concept and the abstract concept of climate or climate change or climate struggle or climate resilience, it's tough to understand. It's tough to process and it's tough to take action on. The thinking process is too hard unless we can associate it with something that we understand, that we're comfortable with. So we think of and understand the stories of the turtles who are coming earlier to nest because they are managing and building resilience around coming in when the weather is cooler. And that things have to change. They have to build up different behaviors. So I offer resilience practices so we can take what we've learned from the metaphors from nature and we can put them into practice for ourselves. And I'll share those in a minute. And it all translates to action, to our taking action, each of us, instead of thinking just about me, to care for and protect others, each other, ourselves, and the ecosystems in the wild world that we live in. So here's a great metaphor. These are the kind of stories that I bring forward that offer up an opportunity to change our behavior, to live life better, to be more resilient, and to live in community in a shared world that works better. So here's a parrotfish. I met a parrotfish when I was at Loggerhead. There's three magnificent bright blue parrotfish in one of our big aquariums. And what I learned from some of the experts that I was talking to that were visiting and they were telling me stories were that parrotfish actually build themselves. It's an incredibly neat, unique capacity. A mucus bubble, it's like a sleeping bag that protects their entire body every night so that they can climb into a crevice and have this sleeping bubble so that they can protect their sleep and get a good night's sleep and be safe and not worry and be calm and have sunscreen and keep bacteria out and keep their odor in so that predators can't find them. And this magic of this boundary that's created was just this brilliant metaphor for creating a boundary to protect our own sleep. So that when we're having trouble sleeping at night, either waking up or falling asleep or just struggling, if whatever it is that wakes you up, picture the parrotfish, picture the sleep bubble, and process the idea that you need to figure out what to keep out of the bubble, what to keep inside the bubble, how to protect yourself with the bubble, and you will change the way you treat your sleep. The false crawls of the sea turtle, they open my mind to thinking about mistakes. Sea turtles drag themselves. These mothers can weigh up to like 300 pounds. Leatherbacks can weigh up to 1,800 pounds. They drag themselves onto the sand. It's exhausting. They do it every 2 weeks for an entire summer and don't eat in between because they're only using their energy to create their eggs and to be able to nest. So they crawl on the beach with love and care. And like at least half the time, they stop and they say, wait a minute, this isn't quite right. This isn't the best place for my babies. And they think about the sand. Is the sand right? Is the air right? Are there predators that make them nervous that might be around? Is the weather right? And half the time or more, they crawl back with their big, heavy loads back into the ocean and either come back on another beach that night or they come back the next day. And it's exhausting. And if they were to shame and guilt themselves and decide that they were bad because they had made a mistake, then this process wouldn't have survived for millions and millions and millions of years. But instead, we have to imagine that they say, I did the best I could in the moment. I tried. I had the information that I had, the understanding that I had, the knowledge that I had, the experiences that I had learned so far. And they said to themselves, I did the best I could. I need to just cut my losses, stop, go back to the ocean, and try again when I have a little bit more information. So if we could do that, if we could process that, and every time we think about blaming ourselves and shaming ourselves and blaming others and shaming others and guilting ourselves and guilting others, instead of doing all that, and to say, you know what, we all make decisions the best we possibly can, and let's learn from them, and let's try again and support each other in that. The gator, we all love gators. I love gators. And I was astonished as I connected with some gators on our golf course and tried to understand how they could just float, how they could float and move up and down and be intentional about how they were laying in the water, how far down they went, and how much they were above the water without seeming to expend any energy. And it occurred to me that we can do the same thing. They are intentional about how they move up and down the water and how they breathe. It's all about their lungs. So if we could take that same lesson and find the intentional, make the intentional choice of how we breathe, we can reduce our stress, reduce our energy use, be more present. And it's times when we're in stress and we're nervous and we're out of control in our body and we start to sweat and shake and not be able to handle a situation. if we spotted the gator and stopped and just focused on our breathing and just chose to relax our body and relax our mind and intentionally breathe to be calm, it's good for our minds, it's good for our bodies, it's good for the energy for ourselves and that we put out there and ripple for everyone else. So the lesson from gators is choose intentional breathing. We have this amazing capacity to do that, and most people don't use it. And the last metaphor I'm going to share for now from one of my episodes and one of my stories is about the banyan tree. Banyan trees are all over Florida. Thomas Edison brought the first one to the Tampa area in over 100 years ago. And banyan trees are all about connection. They're all about building support systems and being there for others and building this enormous canopy and shade so that many, many species can live within the system, within the protection zone, within what's built by the banyan tree as it reaches out and it builds more connections and it drops down its vines and builds more strength so that it can be ready for tough stuff and it can have other people in its network and in its love also ready for tough stuff. So think of the banyan tree when you feel like you're alone, when you feel like you're overwhelmed. You actually have a support system, you have a network, and then focus when you have some breathing room to building it and making a stronger support system for yourself. So the message is for Florida, for climate management and resilience, let's go back to story. Let's go to win-win-win. Let's do this together. Let's go forth and embrace story and connect with nature and connect with our natural systems and connect with each other. Let's seek out the science. Let's understand what's really happening. Let's think in positive nature metaphors. Let's take some of the ones that I'm offering and let's change some of the others. Like sharks are not mean, scary creatures. They are incredibly important to our ecosystems, and they just want to live in peace with each other in the world that they live in. They don't want humans. They want to be in harmony with us. And let's build our resilience together. I offer lots of resilience practices through videos online and through my podcast. And we need to build from fragile to strength. We are not able to handle tough stuff the way we used to be and the way we need to be, because tough stuff comes, it is part of being alive. And let's take action to care for and protect ourselves, each other, and our wild world. So Florida, love being part of you, and I'm so happy to share this joy of going from me to win-win-win. I hope you'll join me. For now, stay wild.